sitting inside and I'm still cooking. Like, my thighs are on fire. That's Georgia for you. Y'all ready for this? Because when I say this is a rabbit hole, it's a rabbit hole. Have you ever come across a story online that felt less like entertainment and more like a warning? Like they were trying to warn you specifically? Well, that's what happened to me when I was scrolling through TikTok looking for stories to share for you guys. I came across a poster named Micheal, aka Crazy Deals, and y'all, whoo, buckle up. I'm telling you, go ahead and get you a blanket, get you a snack, get comfortable, and definitely grab you some protection items, because when I say not many things give me chills, parts of this really had me shook and confused, even as a practitioner, like what the hell was going on. What started as one creepy encounter wound up turning into a whole 13-part series. And don't worry, all 13 are here. And all of this starts because of a Ouija board-like divination tool that this poster decided to get involved with, and it just spiraled out of control from there. So buckle up, because things definitely get strange. What's good in the YouTube hood? It's your girl Luna Nova, and I'm back with an interesting one for y'all today. Y'all know that I love getting into anything creepy, paranormal, and all of the unexplained shit. I'm down for it. And this one right here definitely hit close to home, because apparently all of this starts because the poster was in Dahlonega, Georgia. Now I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and Dahlonega is about 4.5 hours away. I've been there one time personally because of my cousin's wedding. And now that I think about it, Dahlonega might just be haunted because, let's just say, my cousin is divorced now, and she was only married for 3 years. There's some creepy things going on there, so that might be on the vlog list. So of course, finding out that this story originated in Dahlonega, Georgia, it definitely piqued my interest, because anything that happens here, I want to know about it so I can go and visit or do more research. Because one thing I will say for a lot of these stories, it's a hell of a lot easier to do local research than it is research somewhere else, especially if it's international. That should be a message to everybody. A lot of these encounters that you hear about, even here on my channel, they're happening a lot closer to you than you think. Now this one is a long one, so go ahead and settle in. Grab you a blanket, light those protection candles, and let's begin.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true.
Whoa, did I make a mistake? It was around 2005 or 2006. My family and I went to an arts and crafts show in Dahlonega, Georgia. My mom had a booth there, and it was a weekend kind of deal. We got there a day early to set up, but the following day, it was around noon. I decided I was gonna go walk around and look at other people's booths and to go try to find some food. There was this like really unique street with some like local mom and pop shops. I decided that I was gonna go walk down, see what they had to offer. You know, it's a little quaint town, kind of looked like it was straight out of a movie. So I started going down the street to these stores, and I came across this one shop that looked really interesting. It had like muted earth tones, kind of not vibrant at all. There were store closing signs, and it kind of looked like a bookstore. So I was like, okay, I'll go in and check this out, see what's going on. So I walk in, and I'm greeted by this lady who's wearing all black. She has like this lace sleeves that go like all the way down, and it goes like over her fingers. Anyway, she had like a goth vibe, neither here nor there, but that's kind of the vibe of the whole place. So I walked around, I started looking at the books, and I noticed that most of them were all like witchcraft books, and there were like a lot of those healing crystals. And anyway, so none of that really interests me. I was getting ready to leave, and the lady stopped me and she said, hey, did you go look at the back room? And I said, no, I didn't see a back room. And she said, right over there. And she pointed to these like really big ornate red curtains. And she was like, yeah, it's just back there. So I said, okay, well, I'll go check it out, see what's back there. So I walked back there, and she followed like closely behind me, and she said, hey, I want to show you something. And I said, okay, sure. She takes me over to this triangle that's on a stand. This triangle is wooden, and it has like this eye carved into the center. Around the eye was the alphabet and numbers 0 through 9. Around the outside of the triangle, there's like this dial with this pointer. And one could assume that the pointer was to like spell out words. It looked kind of similar to a Ouija board, but in triangular form, if that makes any sense. But anyway, the lady asked me if I wanted to try something fun, which I said, sure. So she asked me to think of a question, but don't give it to her. Don't say it out loud. She told me to look at the triangle, look like right into the eye of the triangle, and think of the question, but really focus and think of the question. And then she said that she would leave me for a little bit and come back and check on me. So I did. I looked straight into the triangle eye and looked and thought of my question. And I did this for a few minutes. Nothing happened. And I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm the biggest skeptic of these things anyway. So I didn't believe anything was going to come from it. But as I was about to walk off, the dial starts moving on its own. Now, remind you, she did tell me not to touch the triangle. Everything had to be done like on its own, so without any interference by me whatsoever. I looked at the triangle. The dial starts moving. It goes to the letter M, and then proceeds to spell out my name, Micheal. It did that all by itself. That super freaked me out, and I was just kind of dumbfounded that this was actually real. So I stayed there for probably an hour, like asking different questions to this thing, and every single time it got them right and it was moving on its own. I was super enamored by this thing at this point, and I was like, okay, I need to go get my mom and my sister so they can vouch for me that I'm not crazy and that this is actually doing this on its own and answering the questions. So I decide that I'm going to leave and go get them. But as I start to leave, this triangle starts moving again, trying to keep me there, I guess. But I didn't ask it any questions this time. It started asking me questions. It asked me if I wanted to know my future. It asked me if I wanted to know the day that I would die. Then it asked me if I wanted to be friends. To which I said no to all of them. No, thank you. No. But anyway, against my better judgment, I went and got my mom and my sister. They did not want to come with me at first. They thought I was weird for like even going in there in the first place, and I shouldn't be going into witchcraft, blah, blah, whatever. Anyway, but I was so convicted and serious in what had happened that my mom and sister came along against their better judgment as well. So they come back in the store with me. The lady greets us. She's like, I know why you're here. And I go walk to the back of the store. I take my mom and my sister over. My sister's the first one to give it a try. She looks into the eye. I explain everything. Don't touch it. Just think of your question. And she asked, like, how old am I? Like, in her mind, she thought it. And it gave the answer. She was freaked out. She said, done. I'm done with this. So then my mom thought that like my sister and I were playing a prank. So she was like, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I don't believe either of you. Like, this is ridiculous. So she does it, and she asked what the name of her parents were, and it gave it to her. So by this point, she was freaked out. My mom and my sister were like, peace out, we're leaving, bye. I decided to stay and play around with it for a little bit longer, just because I was just so like into it at this point. The lady, the shop owner, I guess, she comes up to me and she says that she can tell that the triangle has built a connection to me, and she wanted to offer it to me for free. Take it with me. And I told her, no, thank you. I really don't need to get any more involved with this than I already have. And she said, this may be a long-term decision that you will regret. And I was like, well, that's kind of threatening, but no thanks. I really don't. I appreciate it, but no thanks. So I leave. She tells me bye. I say bye to her. Then the next day, I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Maybe I will go back and get it, and I'll take it and show my friends, so my friends will know that I'm not crazy when I tell them this story. I go back. I walk over to the store, and the store is gone. There's no signs, there's no product, there's nothing in this store, and on top of that, it looks like it's been run down and been sitting there for a very long time. what? Okay, that's weird. So, most people would say that their story ends at this point, and that was just a weird thing that happened. This was just the beginning. All of this started happening around 2005. Until this very day, things are still happening. Stay tuned. I have more stories. It gets way crazier from here. My ghost story continuing on from part 1. After my family and I got home from the arts and crafts show in Dahlonega, Georgia, a few days pass and nothing happens. Honestly, we tried to forget about that whole experience at that shop in Dahlonega. However, small things started happening in the house that didn't really seem like a big deal at first. For instance, the water dispenser in the refrigerator started leaking water one evening and caused my mom to slip and fall. Lights would start blinking throughout the entire house. I would hear voices calling out my name. Sometimes it would be a female voice, sometimes it would be a male voice. It was voices I did not recognize. This also happened to my mom and my sister. My dad never experienced any of these things. Stuff would just randomly fall onto the floor, and this went on for months. We weren't really connecting anything that we were experiencing to the triangle, and honestly, even today, I still don't want to acknowledge the triangle in terms of it having power, because I just don't want to do that. And just for the record, I do not endorse using these types of things. However, I know my experiences are real and I know what I've seen. I will never, ever, ever touch these type of things again, and I do not recommend that you do either. I don't know how to explain my experience except for just to tell you about it as best that I can. Okay, back to the story. A good amount of time passed with nothing happening until this one night I had a sleep paralysis moment. I've never had that in my life. It was super scary. I remember waking up in bed and having this overwhelming sensation that someone was in my bedroom watching me. I could see a shadow-like figure out of the corner of my eye, and I tried to yell out for help, but I could not move and I could not speak. This was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just laid there for a while, and I don't know how long I was just laying there for, but eventually a very loud bang comes from the kitchen. This wakes my parents up. My sister is at college at this point in time, so she did not experience this. My mom yelled out my name thinking that something really bad happened to me, and at this point, I still could not respond. I finally got out of the sleep paralysis and I jumped up out of bed only to fall down to the ground. Why? Because my legs were super numb. When I tried to stand back up, it felt like my legs were jello. So I just kind of had to lay there for a few seconds before my dad comes rushing in. He sees me on the floor and asks me if I'm okay, which I tell him, yes, I'm fine. I fell out of the bed when I was getting up. And I did not have time to explain to him that I was going through a sleep paralysis moment, and I did not even know the terminology at the time. My concern was that someone had broken into the house, so I expressed to him, I think someone is in here because I felt someone in the room with me, and he goes off searching the house looking for who might be in there. My mom keeps calling out my name, and I'm finally able to respond to her and tell her that I'm okay, that I'll be there in just a minute. I had to recollect myself and get up off the floor from having jello legs. As I was exiting my room, there's this hallway right directly in front of my room, and as you look down, you can see the kitchen and the dining room. Well, I noticed something in the dining room. I heard a sound, like a little clicking noise. Well, it was coming from this gas-powered heater that we had. This kind of heater is the kind that you have to push that button down and turn the knob, and then the fire comes on and turns it on. Anyway, so the thing comes on by itself, full blast, just poof. And I just take off to my parents' room. I stay in there until my dad comes back, and it takes him a while, but he does come back, and he says that he didn't see any broken windows. The doors were still locked. Everything seemed fine, but he did say that he noticed that the heater was on, and he asked me if I went and turned it on, which I told him no, I did not touch it at all, haven't been over there. So it was just kind of a moment of confusion, what just happened, what was that noise, we did not know. My mom and I were not able to go back to sleep, but my dad, somehow he managed to go back to sleep. It just didn't bother him as much. But the following morning, I get up to go get me something to drink in the kitchen, and as I walk into the kitchen, I notice something. The cabinet doors were all open. How? I do not know. Why? I do not know. But I went and got my parents and brought them into the kitchen and showed them. They were just weirded out because of what happened the night before. There just really wasn't any explanation as to why that happened. Several months passed without anything happening, and when things did happen, it usually happened at night. That wasn't always the case, but usually it happened at night. So this one night in particular, I was watching TV with my dad. My mom was going to the grocery store. I hear someone call out my name from the opposite end of the house. It was a female's voice. I asked my dad if he heard it, and he said no, he did not. So I get up and I go look down the hallway. You can see the hallway from the den all the way down to my bedroom. I see a shadow-like figure standing by my bedroom door. I can't make out exactly what it is, but I can tell it's like in the shape of a human. So I am standing there frozen, just stunned at what I'm looking at. My bedroom door opened on its own, and then it closed on its own. The moment that it closed, a kitchen cabinet swings open and a glass falls out and breaks. And no, I did not sleep in my bedroom that night. After that happened, about a year passed with nothing else happening. That was until the summer of 2007. My ghost story continuing from part 2. It was the summer of 2007. My mom, my sister, and I had 3 separate experiences. So I'm going to tell each story individually, starting with my sister. My mom and my sister volunteered at a summer youth camp. They were there all summer long. I stayed at my sister's house during this time. When my mom and my sister arrived at the camp, everything went well for the first 2 weeks. Every day, my sister would get up very early to go on a 3-mile long run. One particular day, while she was on her run, she felt like she was being followed. She was the only person up at this hour and on a trail. As she was on her run, she would keep looking back behind her, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. At one point on her run, she heard some rustling in the leaves, like someone was literally like right behind her running, trailing her. She turned around to look. Nobody was there. It really freaked her out, and she decided she was going to run faster so she could get back to camp quicker. As my sister ran faster, she continued to hear the rustling and running sounds directly behind her. Although she did not look back anymore, she stayed focused and continued to run until she felt a strong gust of wind come blow past her. And in the blink of an eye, this man appeared out of literal nowhere and was on the trail with her, running alongside her. He had a distinct red scarf. The man ran past my sister. She did get a good look at his face. She did not recognize him as being a camp counselor, so she was thinking, I'm going to go straight to the camp director's office and report this guy just for safety. As she was thinking that, poof, the guy disappears. So when she did make it back to the camp director's office, she tells him everything, and he just sits there looking perplexed. It wasn't until my sister mentioned the red scarf that made the camp director realize something. He asked my sister to walk over with him to a wall in his office that was full of pictures. He goes over, he picks up one picture, he shows my sister of a man wearing a red scarf. He asks her to look at the picture, and is this the guy? She looks, she says, 100% yes, that's him. The camp director informs her that he passed away 8 years ago, then goes on to tell her that he passed away on the trail of a heart attack. That was the only time that my sister saw the red scarfed man. In part 4, you will hear my mom's story that happened at the very same camp, but a completely different experience. My ghost story continuing from part 3. My mom and my sister volunteered at a summer youth camp all summer long during the summer of 2007. This is a story of my mom's ghost experience while at the camp. My mom's role was head of the cafeteria. During week 3, strange things started happening in the kitchen, and they would only happen when my mom was there alone. One evening while she was cleaning up the kitchen, she heard a noise in the kitchen cabinets. My mom cautiously walked over to the area of the kitchen with the cabinets. Thinking there might be a mouse inside, she picked up a broom and opened one of the cabinet doors, only to find out that no, it wasn't a mouse. It was a bowl that was just spinning in place. She used the broom to push the bowl, and it immediately stopped moving. My mom wasn't oblivious to what might be around her, so she just left the cafeteria for the night. The next day, my mom was preparing a big old pot of chili, getting ready for all the kids coming in for lunch. She was listening to some music on a boombox. The boombox was like nearby her, and she had one of her favorite CDs in there. Anyway, the music just completely stopped while she was singing, so she walks over to go check it out, see what's going on, and the disc is still spinning, but no music is coming out of the boombox. While my mom was looking at the boombox, she heard a noise over by the pot of chili, so she walks back over there only to see the ladle that she was using for the pot of chili levitating over the countertop. So she just stood there and watched it for like a minute. My mom decided to flip the script on the whole thing here. She grabs the ladle as it's floating and she starts talking to the entity and rebuking it, telling it that it has no power over her and it does not scare her. Right after she said that, the lights dimmed and the boombox started playing music again. Nothing else happened for the next several days. That was until this one evening when my mom was finishing up putting the dishes up and she was mopping the floor. She was getting ready to leave the kitchen. She goes over to the light switch to turn it off and she flips it off and the light still stays turned on. She flips it several more times and it doesn't cut off. Then boom! All of the kitchen cabinets open up and the dishes my mom just put away fly out onto the floor. My mom is super annoyed at this point with the entity, and like a boss, she yells at it to clean up its mess. I'm not even kidding. It just got dark all of a sudden while I'm telling this story, so I'm gonna have to like go somewhere else to finish this. And now it's thundering. Okay. This is much better. Now back to the story. Of course, whatever it was that did that, knocking out the plates, did not clean up its mess. So my mom had to go pick all the dishes back up and they needed to be rewashed. As she was picking the plates up, she could hear a noise coming from one of the cabinet drawers opening up. She sets the plates back down on the countertop and she turns around and it is that ladle again floating. So my mom goes over to that ladle and she snatches it up and she says out loud, "Nope, I'm done cooking for the night. You need to be gone." Right after my mom said that, a big mixing bowl falls to the ground. She turns around, she sees it on the ground, and what do you know? It starts floating as well. So what does she do? She's still holding the ladle. She takes the ladle and she chunks it, knocks it into the bowl. Both the bowl and the ladle hit the ground. My mom again rebukes all entities around her. All of the cabinet doors slam shut at that very moment, and that was the last time she saw anything while at that summer camp. My summer story of 2007 is up next. For me personally, it's still one of the scariest things that has happened to me so far. Stay tuned. Continuing from part 4. During the summer of 2007, I stayed at my sister's house while she and my mom volunteered at a summer youth camp. I had my sister's house all to myself. I was having a blast and not a care in the world until... So it was towards the end of June on this one evening, and something happened that absolutely terrified me to my core. I invited a friend over to watch a movie, and we decided that we were going to eat some pizza and ice cream while we watched the movie. So I put the pizza in the oven, and while it was cooking, we decided that we were going to play my Nintendo Wii. So we played it for a few minutes, and my friend got tired of playing the game we were playing, so she suggested another game. So I go over to my shelf to look for the one that she wants to play, and for some reason it's not on my shelf where I keep my games. So I thought maybe the game might be in my bedroom for some reason, so I go back there to see if it is, and while I'm back there, the oven timer goes off, so I ask my friend to go get the pizza out of the oven, and she does, and then moments later she comes back to my room with a pizza cutter in her hand, and she's asking me how many slices of the pizza do I want it cut in. As soon as I reply to her, the pizza cutter flies out of her hand and hits me across my face. If you look closely, you can still see the scar across my nose. My friend was completely mortified. She kept apologizing to me and saying that she did not throw it at me. She doesn't know how that happened. But you know what? It hurt really bad. I knew exactly what was going on though, and I knew that she didn't do it because I saw exactly what happened. But this was the first time that any occurrence like this physically harmed me, so it was a bit jarring. Even though the pizza cutter really hurt my face when it hit me, it didn't really do that much damage. I just went and got a Band-Aid and put it over my nose and told my friend that it was okay. I have not told my friend any of my experiences I've had in my life, and really, I don't tell them to people I personally know because I know it's just freaky and weird. But because I felt bad and I didn't want her to be upset that I got hit in the face, I just told her some of my experiences and then weird things like that happened to me, so don't worry about it, and just laughed it off. We ate our pizza and ice cream and nothing else was happening. It was getting towards the end of the movie and my friend started getting some text messages from an unknown number. So I paused the movie so she could read them. Remember, this is 2007, so we did not have reverse phone number lookup. The first text message said, "How's your evening?" To which my friend replied, "Sorry, wrong number." Then she got a follow-up text that said, "I'm speaking to," insert my friend's name. Right? So we look at each other, freaked out, of course, and then there was another text that came that said, "Did you enjoy the pizza?" So my friend was like, this is a joke. It's a mutual friend of ours. She told her roommates that she was coming over to watch a movie. She assumed that it was one of them. So she sent a reply text and said, "Haha, very funny." Then she got another text that said, "How's Michael's nose?" We both knew that no one else could have possibly known about that because it just happened right before the movie and we didn't say anything to anybody. So my friend asked me if I was in on this joke or prank, and I told her very seriously, no, that I was not. My friend was saying she wanted to leave, and I told her I did not want to be by myself, so she told me to come to her apartment with her. So we got up, I go to the front door, I try to unlock it, and it won't unlock. So she tries it, it doesn't unlock for her. Then she gets another text that says, "Have a seat." Then my friend gets a follow-up text with a link to a website, so we had to go to my desktop computer and type in the website to see what this was, and it was a link to a video of a little girl singing a song, "Cuppy Cake." You can probably find it on YouTube. I'm not going to look. You can check it out if you want. At the end of the song, the power went out. My ghost story continuing from part 5. Once the power went out, it was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The house had wooden floors that creaked when you walked on them normally. So in a quiet house, you can hear anything. And we did. We started out by hearing small footsteps walking towards us and then walking away from us down the hallway. And then it turned into full-on running until my bedroom door slammed shut. My friend said that she was going to call the police, and she attempted to, but her phone started glitching out, and mine did too, at the same time. I'm talking like blinking off and on until they completely cut off, and they would not cut back on. In the living room where my friend and I were, there are 2 doors that go outside. The front main door and a side door that goes to the carport. The door that goes to the carport, the door handle starts jiggling rapidly. So my friend says out loud, "I've already called the police, they're on their way." And as soon as she finishes saying that, the door handle stops jiggling. Then we hear the most creepy and eerie noise. The door starts to unlock slowly, and the door opens on its own. But it doesn't open all the way. Just cracked enough that maybe you could put your hand through. At this point, my friend was just convinced that someone was playing a nasty prank on us because this just seemed so unrealistic. She asked me if all the windows were locked, and I told her I thought so, but I wasn't sure. Then she asked me if anyone else had keys to my sister's house, and I told her no, they did not. My friend suggested we should try running out the cracked door, and I told her absolutely not, because if someone was out there, they obviously cracked the door open for us, wanting us to go out there, so we shouldn't do that. And she decided to come up with a plan that she was going to get her car keys and set her car alarm off, and that would give us maybe some time to run to her car while it scared the person away. And ultimately, I know this isn't going to work because I know what this is. My friend set off the car alarm, and she was completely determined to go through that door, which I told her not to go through, but she wanted to go through anyway. So she runs through that door, through the carport, to her car. I run right behind her because I didn't want to be in that house by myself. We get to her car, which was just right at the front of the driveway, and all the car doors swing open, including the trunk. My friend sees a man at the end of the driveway, which I did not see, so she turns around, runs back towards the house, grabs my arm on the way, and brings me back with her inside the house. She's screaming, "Lock the door, lock the door, there's a man out there." My ghost story continuing on from part 6. My friend was hyperventilating once we got back inside the house. I was doing my best to calm her down. She kept asking, "Why is this happening? What is going on?" And I didn't have a good answer for her. Up until this point, I've never had anything quite like this happen, and it was really terrifying. Yes, I've had scary experiences before, but this seemed different than my past experiences. Anyway, my friend and I go back over to the couch to sit. Remind you, it is still without power in the house, so we just sat there for about 5 minutes in the dark, just waiting for something to happen, and as you can probably guess by now, it did. We hear someone laughing in the hallway, and my friend is absolutely certain at this point that this is the end for us. But then the power comes back onto the house, and so do our flip phones. With the power coming back on, my friend and I thought finally everything is over. She still wanted to leave and go back to her apartment. I was hesitant. She was going to leave whether I wanted to or not. So I went and got my baseball bat, knowing that it probably wasn't going to be of any use, but if there was someone outside, at least I would have something to defend myself with. So I go get my baseball bat, I go outside, she stands in the doorway watching, just, to make sure that everything's going to be fine. And if it wasn't, then she could just go back inside and shut the door. I guess leave me outside. I don't know. But anyway, I walk over to the car with my baseball bat. I look on the inside and the front side, the back side, the trunk. I didn't see anything. So I close the two back doors and I close the trunk. I look over to my friend and I wave her over because there's no one there. So she can come over and get in the car. She comes running over, gets inside, and she leaves the front door open. So then I have to walk back over, go shut the door and lock it. And when I turn around, I see the man. He wasn't in the driveway, he was on the street, but he was looking at us. So I take off running to the car. I jump in, I look at my friend and I say, I see the man, let's go, let's go. She pulls out of that driveway so fast, she just backs out and just takes off. So she does call the police on the way back to her apartment, and they actually got onto her because they thought that it was a prank. I mean, they weren't going to be able to do anything anyway. We make it back to my friend's apartment with no further instances, and my friend never had any other experiences after that night. If you thought that was intense, you haven't heard anything yet. Enter my cousins. My ghost story continuing on from part 7. Disclaimer, the events of this story happened to my cousins, a mom and a daughter. For the sake of privacy, I'll be changing their names for the story. The mom I will call Sarah, the daughter I will call Jessica. The dad was a truck driver and was away during the events of what happened in the story I'm about to tell you. I 100% believe what happened to them. It was the spring of 2009. My family and I were having a family reunion. At the family reunion, food was provided. I went and got my plate of food and I sat with my cousins, Sarah and Jessica. My mom, my dad, and my sister sat elsewhere. During our conversations, everything was going great. We got on the subject of movies, and Sarah started talking about a movie she had recently seen in theaters called The Haunting in Connecticut. She said that movie really freaked her out. However, she did not believe any of that stuff was real. Then she said she wished she could be haunted because it would make her life more interesting. Jessica was laughing and agreed and said she wanted to live in a haunted house. I very sternly told them, do not say those kind of things. Take it back. My cousins didn't know any of the things that had happened to me and my family, so the tone of the conversation changed when I started to tell them some of our experiences, and they didn't believe anything that I was telling them. They thought I was just joking. Sarah said if I did have something follow me, then it was okay if it came home with her. She looked at the empty seat beside me and said, hey, did you hear that? You can come home with me and you can keep Jessica some company. She really shouldn't have said that. I was so frustrated, and I told them I hope it turns out well for you and that nothing happens. Several days go by, my mom gets a call from Sarah. She was worried because some unexplained things were happening at her house, such as the kitchen cabinets being open and the feeling that someone was entering her house in the middle of the night. Things would be moved around her house, stuff would just be misplaced or just placed in odd areas. Stuff that she didn't do and stuff that Jessica didn't do, and they didn't have any explanation for it. My mom explained that we've had many things like this happen to us before, such as the kitchen cabinets being open and closed. I don't know why kitchen cabinets always open and closed. Maybe they're always hungry. I don't know. Anyway, they talked for a really long time on the phone. A few more days passed without anything else happening. However, but did things start to happen. This one day, Sarah gets home from work early and she goes to the kitchen to make herself a bowl of cereal. She goes to open one of the kitchen cabinets, and as she goes to reach for it, it swings open into her hand, which really confuses her, freaks her out, and then she has a feeling that someone is in the house watching her. She walked through the entire house and did not see anyone, and she thought that she was going a little crazy and having a midlife crisis, so she decides that she's going to go take a hot bath and relax. While she's taking her bath, relaxing, the water gets ice cold. She's shivering, shaking. It just is, cold water's not comfortable. So she tries to turn on the hot water and only cold water comes out. So she decides to get out and dry off. As she finished getting dressed, she glanced over at her floor-length mirror and she noticed what looked like to be a man behind her. So she turned around really quick and nobody was there. So she ends up taking off running out of the house, only to realize that she left her car keys and her cell phone on the kitchen counter. Once she realized she left her phone and keys in the house, she decides that she's going to take off about half a mile down the road to her neighbor's house. My cousins lived in a very secluded area, so it is what it is. She had to take off running or stay at the house. So when she got to the neighbor's house, she knocked on the door and nobody answered. As Sarah was knocking on the neighbor's door, the school bus with Jessica passes by. Sarah sees this and she takes off running to the school bus to try to get them to stop so they don't drop Jessica off at the house, but unfortunately she wasn't able to stop them and had to run half a mile back down the road to her house, yelling out Jessica's name the entire time. When Sarah made it back to the house, the school bus was already gone and Jessica had already been dropped off and was inside. So Sarah runs inside the house screaming for Jessica. Jessica was in her bedroom. She heard her mom frantically calling out her name. She runs into the living room where Sarah was, and Sarah says, "There's a man in the house. We have to leave. We have to go now." Sarah grabs her keys and her phone off the kitchen counter and they both run to the car. Once they get in the car to leave, Sarah calls to report a break-in at her house. The police come over. They check. They didn't find anything. Sarah's really starting to question her sanity at this point, and both Sarah and Jessica reluctantly went back home. A few weeks passed with nothing happening until this one very disastrous night. My and my cousin's ghost story, continuing from part 8. My cousin Jessica was laying in her bed one night reading a book before going to bed. As she was reading her book, the power to the lamp on her nightstand went out, so she thought maybe the power to the house went out. However, she noticed that her alarm clock still had power. She looked to see if the lamp somehow got unplugged, but it was plugged in, so she just assumed that the bulb maybe blew and was like, okay, whatever. So she laid back down, and as she laid down, the lamp cut back on. So she just stared at the lamp looking confused at it. She reached for the switch to turn the power to the lamp off, and as she was doing that, the power to the lamp just cut off on its own and then back on again. So she just assumed that there was some kind of short to the lamp and she unplugged it. She turned back around, she went to sleep. She wakes back up later only to see that lamp flickering off and on again. Jessica had this really large window beside her bed that allowed a lot of moonlight to come into her room. So when she would turn the power to her room off, her room was illuminated by the moonlight. Jessica sat up in her bed with the lamp still flickering. She was about to get out of bed and then the lamp completely stopped flickering. So all she had was that moonlight to see in her bedroom. And then she saw him. A shadow-like figure of a man standing at the end of her bed. Jessica starts screaming as loud as she can. She gets up out of her bed and she runs over to her mom's room. Sarah was already awake because she heard Jessica screaming. Once Jessica gets to her mom's room, she starts screaming that she saw the man. Sarah gets up out of bed. This time, she goes to get protection, if you know what I mean. She goes searching the house. All the doors are locked. No windows are broken. Everything is seemingly fine. About a week passes with nothing happening, so Sarah and Jessica thought maybe, just maybe, their troubles were over. But you and I both know it's not over. This one night, Jessica's back in her bedroom reading a book again. She falls asleep while she's reading the book, and then she wakes back up to that lamp flickering off and on again. So she picks up the lamp and she throws it into her floor and the lamp cuts off. Oh, but when that lamp went off this time, she looked at the end of her bed and she saw that shadow man. He grabbed her leg and he pulled her out of the bed towards him. She managed to get away from him and she ran to her bedroom door. Look, I literally have chills right now. Like, seriously. This is freaking me out. She makes it over to her bedroom door and it swings shut. She can't open the door. She's screaming for help. And as she's doing that, her closet doors swing open and that shadow man that was at the end of her bed turns into a black cloud and he is like floating towards her on the floor. Sarah hears Jessica scream, so she jumps up out of bed and she takes off running towards Jessica's bedroom. And on the way to her bedroom, random objects in the house start lifting up, flying, and hitting Sarah repeatedly over and over and over. She makes it over to Jessica's bedroom and she can't get inside the door, so she starts busting that door in and eventually she's able to get inside. It didn't take that long for her to get in, though. I mean, the power of a mom, right? But anyway, once she gets inside the bedroom, she sees Jessica on the floor being dragged inside the closet. Whew. So Sarah turns a light on and whatever had Jessica by the leg let go. Jessica's leg was hurt. She was able to get up and limp. Sarah told her to get to the car as quick as she could. Sarah had to go run and get her phone and her keys. Sarah should really keep her phone and her keys with her. She grabs her phone and her keys and she makes it back to the car. They get in the car, they leave, they get out of there as fast as they can, and they head to a family member's house. Jessica's leg ended up being really bruised. It was black, brown, and purple. On the back side of her leg, she had a handprint. Sarah calls the police back over to her house and they show up. They see busted windows, the front door wide open, and belongings strewn all over the yard. So they go inside and they see what looks like a tornado went off and just destroyed the entire inside of the house. My cousins never went back to that house to live in it. The only time they did return to it was to pack up what stuff they could before tearing the house down and selling the land. Knock on wood, nothing has happened to them since then. The next story happens at the most unusual place. It was Halloween time and I was participating in Boo at the zoo. My ghost story continuing on from part 9. Fall was in the air and trick-or-treating season had arrived. Some friends of mine and I volunteered at a local zoo for what they called Boo at the Zoo. It's basically a Halloween fall festival event that takes place after the zoo closes for the evening. It's a family-friendly event that has a hayride that goes throughout the zoo. That hayride is what I took part in. This one year when my friends and I arrived at Boo at the Zoo, we went to the check-in booth and got our volunteer stickers. Normally, when we go as a group, we stay together. However, we arrived late this time, and I had to be placed in a separate group with people I didn't know. So on the hayride, they have different posts. These posts are where you stay for the night and work. The posts are where the scenes are decorated and you jump out of the hayride and you scare people. After you finish your check-in, you get on a golf cart that takes you to a warehouse on property that is full of Halloween costumes. You go pick out who you want to be, you get dressed, then you go to a makeup table, get your makeup on. Then after that, you go get on the hayride, which takes you to your post. When I got on the trailer, I noticed that there was this guy sitting by himself towards the back end of the trailer. He was trying to talk to other people, but no one would acknowledge him, and I don't like it when people do that. So I walked over to him and I asked if I could sit beside him, and he said that I could. So then I asked him which post he was going to, and come to find out, we were going to the same post. The guy said that he liked my costume. I was dressed as a clown. I asked him who he was dressed up as because he was just wearing normal people clothes, like literally clothes like this, nothing special at all. And he said that he was just someone that did not exist in the physical world. He said that it was perfect for him because no one pays him any attention anyway. I told him he should have went and got some makeup put on for aesthetics, but he said he didn't want to do that because he felt that it was silly. So after a few minutes of talking, I asked him what his name was, and he said his name was Zeke. Once our hayride was full, it was off to our post. There were 6 other people that were in our group in addition to Zeke and I. Once we arrived to our post, we had about an hour before the hayride started, so I went and introduced myself to everyone. I noticed that Zeke was not interacting with anyone. He was sitting at a bench by himself. So I go walk over to him and I ask him if he's okay, and he said that he was just waiting for the hayride to start. So I asked him if I could hang out with him for a little bit, and that seemed to make him happy. Zeke liked to make a lot of jokes, and he was actually pretty funny. Once the hayride started, everyone rushed to get back into position to jump out and scare those coming by on the hayride. Mind you, this was designed for kids and it wasn't actually scary. Once the hayride started, I noticed that Zeke was nowhere to be found. In between the hayrides, I went and looked for him. There was this path that was near where we were that went down to the lions. There was no lights on this path because the zoo cuts the lights off during this event. The only lights that we did have were those illuminating the sets that we were at for the hayride. As I walked down the path to the lions, it was pretty dark, and I'm not supposed to be going down that way. We're only supposed to stay at our post. I call out Zeke's name, but not loudly because I don't want to get caught. I don't see him, so I turn around and head back. As I'm heading back, I get close to my post, and I see that he's sitting at a different bench, so I walk over and approach him. Something just seemed a little off, so when I walked up to him, I asked him again, "Are you okay?" He said that he was, but he just wasn't really interested in the hayride. So I asked him if I could just sit with him for a little bit, and he said, yeah, I would like that. We ended up talking for a long time about life and all the different struggles that come with it. He said that he was feeling trapped in his current situation, and he was just ready to move on from it. I did not ask him any questions because I didn't want him to feel pressured into telling me anything he did not want to. I just sat there and listened. During the middle of what he was saying to me, he just abruptly stops and just starts hysterically laughing, which confuses me. Then he looks right past me and starts talking to no one, and he says he doesn't know. He really doesn't know, and continues to laugh. I started feeling like, I don't know about this guy. I asked him who he was talking to, and he said, your friend. You brought him with you. I told him that no, my friends were at another post. There was nobody there but you and I, buddy. I tell him that I've been gone from the hayride for too long, and I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to go head back over there. His mood instantly changed. He stood up, and he started walking towards the lions area. As he was walking away, he stopped and turned around and said, thanks for being nice to me. That's rare these days. I can tell that something is special, different, and unique about this guy. I just can't pinpoint what it is. So I asked him not to be gone too long and to come find me after the hayride, and he just gives me a thumbs up, and he turns and talks to no one beside him and continues walking on. Once the hayride was over, everyone loaded up on the hayride to head back to the warehouse. Zeke did not show back up to get on the hayride to head back, so I assumed that he must have just walked back. Once we got back, we went to the warehouse, changed our clothes, and then we went to the checkout booth to check out for the evening. As I was checking out, I asked the lady that was doing the paperwork if Zeke had already checked out, who was in my group. She looked and she said there wasn't a Zeke in my group or on the list. And I told her to look through and check and make sure he wasn't in anyone else's group, or he just got misplaced and we ended up in the same post, or could she just look? So she looked through all the paperwork and she said that there was no Zeke there that night. No one by the name of Zeke was on any of the list. This really confused me. There were two girls standing directly behind me and they were in my group. So I turned and asked them if they had seen the guy that I was talking to and hanging out with for most of the night. And one of the girls says, "No, but I saw you sitting on a bench talking to yourself for a really long time." Excuse me? But then I realized something in that moment. Zeke told me who he was. He told me that he did not exist in this physical world. My heart was racing. This is not like any other experience I've had before. I felt like I was literally going to pass out. In the years that passed, I never saw him again. The next story takes place after my family and I moved into a new house. All was going well until the boy in the basement showed up. My ghost story continuing from part 10. My family and I moved to a new house in a new city. My parents wanted to live closer to my sister and to be around my then 4-year-old nephew. The neighborhood was fairly quiet and the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. We got everything moved in and settled. Months passed and we were really enjoying our new house. We set up our basement like it was an apartment. It had a bedroom, a bathroom, a mini kitchen, but we mostly used it as a playroom for my nephew. My sister gave us a whole lot of toys so that when my nephew came to stay, he'd have something to play with. After a few months of living in the house, small occurrences started happening. When we first moved in, like clockwork, I would wake up at 3 a.m. every single night. This one night, I woke up to something that sounded like it fell in the living room. I had no idea what it was, so I got up. I went downstairs and the lights were off, so it made it pretty dark in the house. I looked over to the staircase going down to the basement, and I saw the shape of what looked like to be a child. I knew it wasn't my nephew because he was not staying with us that night. As soon as I saw the child, they turned their head and looked at me and then took off running down towards the basement. But the odd thing is that there was no sounds of running or walking. It was just silent. I thought for a second that I might be actually having a very realistic dream, but really I knew that I wasn't. I just didn't want to admit what I thought it actually was. There was a light switch at the top of the staircase and at the bottom of the staircase. These light switches controlled the lights above the staircase. So when you turn it on, the light comes on, you can see down the stairs. There was a separate light switch once you got downstairs that controlled the lights to the main room. So while I was standing at the top of the stairs, I turned the stairs light switch on and looked downstairs. I didn't see anything while looking downstairs, but I needed to go down there because there's a door that went to the outside. I needed to go make sure that it wasn't open. So I go downstairs and go to the main light switch and try to turn it on, but the lights do not cut on. I can see from where I'm standing that the door is closed, but I needed to walk over to make sure the door was locked. So I walk over and check, and it was locked. While I was standing at the door, the staircase lights turned off. So this, of course, made me uneasy, and I slowly walked back over to the staircase, looking around, and I did not see anything. So I went back upstairs, and I managed to somehow go back to sleep. You really never get used to these kinds of things, you just kind of deal with it. The next morning, all of my nephew's toys in the basement were dumped all over the floor, so I had to go down there and clean up the mess. Several weeks passed with nothing happening, but one night as I was laying in bed, I woke up again at 3 a.m., and as I woke up, my bedroom door opens up and then it closes. I jump out of bed so quick and I turn my lamp on, but I didn't see anything. I walk back over to my bed and I sit down. I start to hear a noise from under my bed, so I lift my legs up on top of my bed. As I'm doing that, a toy train comes rolling out from under the bed, which of course that freaks me out. I stand up on top of my bed and I jump over towards my bedroom door. I get down on the floor to look underneath my bed and I don't see anything but my nephew's toy train. That night I was not able to go back to sleep. I kept my light on, I went back to bed, and I just laid there for hours until morning. And then I slept for most of the day because my nephew was coming over that evening and I wanted to be somewhat rested so that we could have a good time. It was a Saturday evening and my sister dropped my nephew off to spend the night. My parents and I planned a movie night and to play age-appropriate games with my nephew. Later that evening, when it was time for my nephew to go to bed, he had his own bedroom. A few hours after he went to sleep, my parents and I went to bed. What happens next is from the point of view of my nephew as he detailed it to me and my family. Now, we have never told him about any of our experiences because, well, it's just too scary to tell a child. Anyway, at some point during the night, he gets up, he leaves his bedroom, and he goes downstairs to where his toys are because he wants to get a stuffed animal that he likes to sleep with. As he gets to the staircase that goes down to the basement, he turns the light on and he starts to walk downstairs. As he's walking downstairs, he sees someone from the darkness of the basement start walking towards him. My nephew starts screaming. I jump out of bed, I run and I check and he's not in his bedroom. I can hear my parents getting up out of their bed. I run down to the basement. Before Before I could get down to the basement, I saw my nephew standing at the top of the stairs looking terrified. I run over to him, and he can't make any sentences. He's just pointing downstairs. So I grab him, pick him up, and I take him to my parents' room. And I'm so over it at this point, I go back downstairs to the basement. I did not end up seeing anything in the basement, so I went back upstairs to go check on my nephew, and my mom had gotten him to stop crying. So we asked him what he saw, and he couldn't really elaborate, but he said that he saw a bad kid in the basement. He said the bad kid just chased him upstairs and then just stared at him. Several weeks passed without anything else happening. However, this one night when I woke up at 3 a.m. yet again, as I open my eyes, I see this shadow figure floating above me, and I quickly turn my lamp on, and I did not see anything. I get up to go downstairs. This time, I purposefully leave the lights off in the house, and I go down to the basement, and I go sit in a chair waiting for something to happen. About 30 minutes passed, and nothing happened. But then, as I'm sitting in the chair, one of my nephew's toys that lights up started going off, and it made noise as well. So I continued to sit in the chair waiting for something else to happen. About 10 minutes pass and nothing's happening. So I'm just sitting and waiting. And then the chair beside me starts to pull away. So I sit in my chair pretending like nothing's happening, like it's not bothering me at all. I continue to wait for the boy to appear, and he never does. So eventually I get tired of waiting because nothing else is happening. So I go back upstairs and I go to bed. The next night, my nephew came back over to spend the night. As he went to sleep and my family and I went to sleep, I woke up again at 3 a.m. and I went and checked on my nephew to make sure he was okay, but he was not in his bedroom. So I go down to my living room, all of the lights are out, and I see my nephew sitting on the couch. And I ask him what he's doing, and he doesn't say anything. So I walk closer to him and I tell him he has to go to bed. He looks up to me and he goes, I asked him why we had to be quiet, and he said we have to be quiet because the bad kid might hear us. And I said, well, can you see the bad kid right now? And he said, no, but the bad kid is in the basement right now. I walked over to the staircase and turned the light on, and I did not see anything. But my nephew came over and stood beside me, and he said that he could see the bad kid standing at the end of the staircase and that he had red eyes. I take my nephew to my parents' room so that he can stay in there with them, and I go back down to the basement and I start talking to whatever is in the room with me, and I tell it that it does not scare me and that it needs to leave immediately and stop messing with my nephew. I just stood there in silence for a while and nothing happened, so I went back to my room. We ended up staying in that house for about a year with instances happening off and on, and it became a problem because my nephew got scared to come over. Anyway, we ended up moving and we never saw the boy in the basement again. The next story takes place in a place you would least expect, a church. My ghost story, continuing from part 11. This town I was living in was a really small town where everyone knew everyone. My family and I attended the local church, which was a pretty decent size for the size city that we were living in. At this church, certain members had keys to the building. My parents were some of the members that had keys. One Saturday evening before Sunday morning services, I went to my church to go print off some materials for everyone that was going to be attending Sunday morning classes. I got to the church around 10 p.m. because I had procrastinated all day. If you've ever been in a church building by yourself, then you already know it's a little creepy. Add nighttime to that, and it's way creepier, especially when the church building is a decent size. I make my way inside and I head to the main office. The main office has glass walls from top to bottom. Attached to the office is the pastor's office. There's a door and a solid wall separating both rooms from the pastor's office to the main office. The main office is the only room in the building that has glass walls from top to bottom. There was also another entrance to the pastor's office from the connecting hallway. As I make it over to the main office, I turn the long stretch of hallway lights on, then I turn the office lights on and enter the office. I was only in the office for a few minutes before the hallway lights cut off. So, as you can imagine, I was thinking, please do not let this be what I think it is. This has happened so many times now, I just knew that it probably was. But I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt, so I go look outside the office and I look around to see if I see anyone, and I call out, no one answers. I start getting anxious. The light switch to the hallway was still flipped on, so I turned it off and then I turned it back on and the lights came back on and then immediately cut right back off. I knew what this game was, and I did not want to play it. The only thing illuminating the long stretch of hallway were these little green lights coming from the smoke detectors. A door at the very end of the hallway slammed shut. Then in rapid succession, 6 more doors start shutting. all the way leading up to me. I try turning the light switch to the hall back on, and it's just not working. I can feel a strong gust of wind coming up from the hallway, and I run back into the office. I anticipate on seeing something because of the glass walls, but nothing ever appears. I don't see anything. I go over to the phone in the office to call my parents, and as I'm dialing the number, I heard a noise coming from the speaker of the phone. So I put my ear up closely to listen, and it sounds like heavy breathing followed by muffled sounds of someone trying to say something, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. So I asked, "Hello, who is this?" And no one answered. So I hung up the phone, and as I did that, the hallway lights start a strobing effect. I slowly walk back over to the door to the office, and I open it. I look down the hallway, and I see a shadow man standing at the very end of the long hallway. This shadow man was different than past experiences. In between the lights strobing off and on, when the lights were on for like a millisecond, I saw a man standing there, not a shadow man, but like an actual man. That man was someone that I recognized. It was the man that was standing outside of my sister's house when my friend and I were trying to escape that summer of 2007. He was the one that was standing in the driveway and then on the street. I take off running out of the hallway to the main entrance of the building, and as I'm doing so, I turn around and I look down the long hallway, and I see that the shadow man is running straight towards me. I make it to the main entrance of the church, but I had locked myself inside the church, and I was looking for the key so that I could unlock the door and get out, but my hand was shaking so much that I couldn't find the key. I knew that the shadow man had to be standing right behind me, so I turn around really quick, and he's not there. There's nothing there. So that gave me time to find the key to the front door of the church, so I unlocked the door so that I can leave. I had a strong urge to end this once and for all, so I don't leave. I actually slowly walk back over to the office. The lights to the hallway had stopped strobing and were just off. So I walked over to the light switch to the long hallway, and I turned it back on. The lights came on. I look at the end of the hallway, waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't. So I go inside the office. I was in the office for about 10 minutes. This allowed me time to finish up everything I needed to do, printing wise. And as I was finishing up, the door to the pastor's office, the doorknob starts jiggling. It was just like what happened to the door at my sister's house when my friend came over that summer of 2007. It was like someone was standing on the other side of the door, just shaking the doorknob. I walk over to the door and I grab the door handle to stop it from shaking. Then I pull the door open as fast as I can. As I do that, a strong burst of wind comes out at me, and the lights cut off again. The only little bit of light that I did have were coming from those smoke detectors with those little green lights. I could see the shadow man standing in the room with me, so I took a page out of my mom's book and I start rebuking him, telling him that he is not welcome around me and to be gone. Well, he didn't go anywhere. He just stayed standing there looking at me. Then I'm like, oh great, this did not work. So then I take off running to the front entrance of the building so that I can leave. As I'm running through the church, all the lights around me are just strobing very fast. Thankfully, I had unlocked the front door and left it unlocked before I went back to go deal with the shadow man. So I was able to just bust through that door and run to my car. After that Saturday evening, I have not seen the shadow man since then. And that was years ago now. However, I still do have things happen to me current day. And that brings us to the next video, part 13, where I'll give you a current day update. I will give you my overall thoughts on some of my past experiences, as well as I will answer some of the questions that you asked me in the comments on my other videos. My ghost story continuing from part 12. If you've tagged along with me in this series, you know I've seen some wild things. But how are things current day? Well, I'll tell you. 2 years ago, things changed. I've had new experiences, and it's hard to explain, but I'll do my best. It all started 2 years ago when I had a dream of family and friends that had already passed on. It was a very realistic dream. Basically, it was all of them telling me that they were okay. But during this dream, I saw a close friend of mine who was very much alive and well. I woke up from the dream feeling very uneasy. A week passed from the time of the dream, and my friend had his life senselessly taken from him. Months passed, and I was with someone else that I was very close with. I go in to give them a hug as I normally did, but this time when I gave them a hug, I felt something I've never felt before. While hugging this person, I was overcome with emotion. I didn't know how to explain it, but I knew that this person had a limited time left on this earth. And unfortunately, this turned out to be the case, and months later, this person passed away. I do not claim to have any powers, abilities, or anything like that. However, after the second person that was close to me passed away, I became very jaded and angry. I started to notice that whenever I would talk about the people I was close with not being here anymore, the lights in whatever room I was in would cut off. A few weeks after the second person I was close with passed away, I went to a Christmas party. While I was there, someone asked me how I was doing. This brought about an emotional response from me, and in doing so, the power to the whole house completely cut off. This has now become a trend in my life. Whenever someone passes away that I'm close with, or I talk about those who have already passed on and I get emotional about it, wherever I'm at, the power goes off. Multiple people in my life have now witnessed this firsthand. I was at a game night with some friends and I brought up about how whenever certain topics come up and they make me emotional, that the power goes out. Now, some of the friends of mine did not believe me. They thought I was just making it up for some weird reason. I'm in a better place now than I was when the two people I was close with passed away. Just bringing them up used to make me very, very, very emotional. So I believe getting your feelings out and not bottling them up until the bottle just explodes. And that's what I did at the game night. I eventually opened up a little bit more after talking about the lights going off. As I was talking about my feelings, the lights in the room that we were in began to flicker. I stopped talking and all of the lights in the whole house just went out. Another instance was when I was at a flea mall. I was on the phone talking to a friend of mine. She was pregnant during that time. While talking to her, out of nowhere, I felt like I got hit with a ton of bricks. I just knew that the baby wasn't healthy and was not going to make it to full term. I don't know how I knew, but somehow I just knew. I did not tell my friend on the phone that I felt something was wrong because it wasn't the appropriate time or place. But this did give me really high anxiety. After I had that feeling, I was still on the phone with my friend and the lights in the entire flea mall started blinking. Now, this was a very large building and all of the lights in all of the building were blinking off and on until the power just completely cut off. Again, I do not claim to have any powers or anything like that. But these are things that do happen to me and I don't have any explanation for it. My friend did end up losing her baby just weeks later. This new thing of me knowing what's going to happen before it happens seems to be what has taken over in these past 2 years. I've had several people message me and tell me after watching my videos that I've uploaded that they've experienced some glitching with their phones while watching the videos. Like their phone would restart or the phone would blink off and on, and in one case someone said that they had their phone on a table and the phone unlocked and turned on the TikTok app and started playing one of my videos. I don't have any explanation or answers for that, and I don't know what to make of it. For anyone who's been concerned about my past experiences and has suggested that I go seek the assistance of a priest, personally, I'm not Catholic and absolutely nothing against anyone who is. But I went and got the assistance of someone better than a priest. 2 years ago, I went to the top guy, the Pope. Yep, you heard me right. The Pope. The Pope. I was at the right place at the right time. I was at the Vatican where the Pope was speaking to a very large crowd of people, and I was as close to the Pope as you could get. At the end of his service, he prayed over everyone and gave everyone his blessings. That includes me as well because I was in the crowd, and I hope that eases some of your concerns. Many of you have asked questions, and I've got thoughts and answers. Did all of my experiences that my family and I had come from that triangle from that store in Dahlonega, Georgia? I believe I opened the door to something negative when I used that triangle, and you should never use a triangle like that. When I was growing up, I had different experiences. I would say they were more spiritually positive, and then after using the triangle, they were negative experiences. However, I still have these spiritually positive experiences that I may address in a future series of videos. Basically, my life is not what you would deem as normal. Did I ever return to Dahlonega, Georgia? No, I have only been to Dahlonega, Georgia that one time. What did my family think of the store with the triangle disappearing the very next day? We all thought it was just weird. They did have store closing signs, so the logical thinking was that they just packed up overnight, the fastest pack up job you can do, and then they headed out of there. I don't know why the store looked like it had been abandoned for years either. Like there was no store there previously and there hadn't been one there for like maybe 10 years. I don't remember what street it was on because that was so long ago and I've only been to Dahlonega that one time, but I do remember that the festival that I was at taking place at like a city square, and it would have been near that. Was sleep paralysis scary? Absolutely. When you have sleep paralysis, it feels like you have no control over your body. You can't speak, you can't move, you just have to lay there until it passes. If you've never had sleep paralysis before and it's your first time having it, you're just sitting there like what's going on. It's super, super scary. Was my dad affected by any of this? No, he did not have any experiences of his own. He did not go to that store that had the triangle, therefore he did not mess with it, and he just never had any experiences. However, he did see things that would happen to my mom, my sister, and myself. For the video in part 4 of this series, I mentioned in the comment section that I was having an issue getting the video uploaded. What happened? When I started filming part 4, the power to the house went out, so I had to go to my vehicle to film the video. While I was in my vehicle filming the video, a dark storm cloud appeared in the middle of my video. As you can see, the video gets dark, so I had to stop filming and wait for the power to come back on in the house so that I could finish the video. Then, after I finished filming the video, I go to upload it, and my phone literally just freezes, not moving at all, and then it starts to blink off and on. I cut it back on, and then it worked just fine. Am I still friends with the friend that was with me at my sister's house during the summer of 2007 story? Unfortunately, we were never really close after that, and we just went our separate ways. How are my cousins Sarah and Jessica doing today? Sarah and Jessica are doing great. After they moved, they've not had any other experiences, and yes, they learned a lesson not to invite home any entities with them. What did Zeke from Boo at the Zoo look like? Zeke was around my age at the time. He was wearing normal clothes, nothing out of the ordinary. He was a slim guy, probably around 5'11". Does my nephew remember the boy in the basement? Yes, from time to time my nephew brings up the boy in the basement. It left a lasting impression on him. Since then, my nephew has had several experiences of his own. He too has a way of knowing that something is going to happen to someone before it actually does. Just a few months ago, my nephew was riding with me to the store. He rode in the back seat, and a man pulls up beside us on a motorcycle. We were waiting at a red light. The man was in the left lane and I was in the right lane. There was this bridge about half a mile away that we could see from the red light. My nephew says, "Do you see that guy on the motorcycle?" I said, "Yes." He said, "He's not gonna make it." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When we go under that bridge, he's gonna get in a wreck and it's gonna be really bad and he's not gonna make it." When the light turns green, I decide that I'm gonna speed up because I don't want to get in any kind of wreck or anything. So once we get under the bridge, sure enough, this van comes up behind the guy on the motorcycle and he wrecks into the motorcycle. The guy goes flying off. The scene was a bit chaotic and it looked really bad. If that guy did survive, it would be by a miracle. Was the shadow man the same shadow figure I saw when I had sleep paralysis? I cannot say for sure because I only saw the shadow figure out of the corner of my eye while I was having sleep paralysis. I would not be surprised if that shadow figure followed me home from that store. I do think it probably is the same shadow guy that I saw out of the corner of my eye and then at my sister's house in that summer of 2007 story, followed by it going over to my cousin's house and then popping up at the church. The shadow man is the one that has caused the most issues and seems to be the scariest out of all the entities that I have experienced. As I've said multiple times in this video and in other videos, I do not recommend you talk to any weird triangles that speak back to you. Some things should just be left alone. But if you choose to mess with that stuff, that's on you. Just remember, when you hear things go bump in the night, that you may be in the presence of something otherworldly. And, well, it may be something you come to regret long term.
Now that was definitely a doozy, but that should just let you know, don't play with things that are out of your spiritual league. Because in my opinion, I definitely believe that Micheal took something home with him when he decided to play with that divination tool. He didn't know what it was, and whatever came through, it wound up not only affecting Micheal, but also his other family members who wound up getting entangled in all of this along the way too. So I say all that to say, a small reiteration of what Micheal said himself, but this is why you don't play with things you don't understand. Some things are really just out of your spiritual league. Go to a trusted practitioner or do your research to find one. As quiet as it's kept, we're out here. This is why you need to leave it to the professionals. So just take this as a warning. Spirit doesn't care if you're ready or not. They're coming if you knock. If you've had a creepy encounter of your own, paranormal, spiritual, or otherwise, send it in to my email, The Mystic Muse Creations. You might just be featured on the next episode for Mystic Monday. But this was a long one. I'm not going to keep you much longer. So with that being said, make sure that you drink your water, mind your business, and stay prayed up and protected. And as always, Luna loves you. I'll be back with another one for you guys if the spirits allow it.